that you all had a good afternoon and see you all out tonight. We had been working on and have been throughout the year, working on these mini-series on Sunday nights. And we're supposed to be doing kind of this theme on harvest and so forth, and I didn't quite like what I had laid out, and I decided, well, we'll just come back down the road and kind of redo that. And so we're going to take a little side quest tonight and just do a little lesson here about Jesus. We're going to kind of tag off with some things that we've been talking about, though. So hopefully it won't be completely just, completely aside. But, this morning we were talking about Jesus, and when we were talking in Bible class about him being Lord, and we were talking about all those ones and talking about the idea of being called to unity. And I made mention that idea of Lord in that context is this word Adonai, which means ruler. It means sovereign one. It means one as we would think of like a king. And one of the greater, more prominent ways of looking at Jesus in prophecy and in expectation, and then as well as in fulfillment, was that Jesus was going to be just that, because he was supposed to be the son of David. So we're going to be looking at that a little bit tonight, and hopefully use that as kind of a launching point for some other thoughts as we go into next month. We talk about the joy of a Christian on Sunday nights. But let's just start here in the book of Matthew in chapter 9. If you want to be turning there with me, we have, of course, Jesus is in this ministry. He is doing, miraculous things. He is teaching amazing things that people did not and had not heard before. And he's doing it in ways that, completely surprise them. Right before where we're going to pick up, we're going to have a girl restored to life. We're going to have the woman who had the issue with blood, who's healed. Before that, you have a paralytic who was healed. And then we're going to pick up in verse 27 in chapter 9, and it's behind me. It says, when Jesus departed from there, 2 blind men followed him, crying out and saying, Son of David, have mercy on us. And when he had come into the house, the blind men came to him, and Jesus said to them, Do you believe that I am able to do this? And they said to him, Yes, Lord. And then he touched their eyes, saying, According to your faith, let it be to you. And their eyes were opened, and Jesus sternly warned them, saying, See that no one knows it. But when they had departed there, they spread the news about him in all that country. And of course, we're really kind of going to emphasize this idea of Son of David, but I can't help but point out a couple other things while we're here. He's healing the blind. Well, is there anything significant about that?
Yes.
Really significant if you're the blind man who can see, right?
How did they see? We know to say Jesus, son of David.
That's interesting, yeah. Of course, we don't have the detail of maybe they'd heard whispers or whatever. People, because there's crowds that constantly followed him. That I hadn't thought of that, Vicky, but that is an interesting point. How they know he was there or that it was him? Okay, so there were prophecies in the Old Testament about Messiah. It's very particular ones about bones being broken. There's ones being hung between 2 thieves. There's all kinds of prophecies about Jesus, but one was that he would heal the blind and give hearing to the deaf. It's one that, if it happens, it's not recorded in the Old Testament. We don't have people who are blind receiving sight and so forth in the Old Testament, and we see it happen here in the New. So that is a significant thing, but he tells them, don't let anybody know. How are you going to hide that you were blind and now can see? It's just an interesting thing to me. I mean, he tells them, don't make sure that nobody knows it. And here I was blind yesterday and now I can see. I think that's going to be a little bit hard to hide, right? And we talked about that a little bit when we were in the study on the book of Mark, that he was trying to kind of tamp down this idea of him just being a healer. Because that's what we do sometimes. We take God and we have a need and we limit him or bring him down just as that and then miss the more important parts, right? But they go out and tell it. But look at how they address him. They call him Son of David. Now, how and why would they attribute him to the lineage of David. Why would they call him son of David? What are they saying when they say that?
He's a king.
Okay, they are implying that he is the king.
He's also the fulfillment of the prophecy.
Yeah, they're suggesting that he is the fulfillment of the Davidic covenant and the prophecy of David's son being on the throne. What they are confessing when they say that is something huge. It's not some small thing. They're not confessing him to be a prophet. You might remember on one occasion that he asked, and this is later in the book of Matthew, who do men say that I am? And some say Jeremiah or Jeremiah or Elijah or one of the prophets. And then he turns and says, who do you say that I am? These two men recognized who he was, which is phenomenal. But the son of David, and then look back at the text. I didn't put this behind me, just this main verse, but look down at verse 28. And when he says, when the blind men come to him, Jesus said to them, do you believe that I am able to do this? Okay? And they said to him, yes. And look at the Lord. I don't want to make more than we need to of the spelling and the words in the Greek. You don't have to know this to appreciate what's in the passage. But they are recognizing the idea of his sovereignty. This is one of the things I do think there's a disconnect sometimes in the modern church and in the first century church. They saw Jesus as king, not just as a label, but as a reality. They were waiting for and looking for him to be a king. All the New Testament points to him. That whole sermon on the day of Pentecost was that Jesus was what? King. That he was the son of David. That he is the one that David said, the Lord said to my Lord, sit here at my right hand, the place of power until I make your enemies your footstool. We generally see Jesus as what? In our modern culture? Savior, right? And if you remember, Peter would say, this Jesus who you took with long lawful hands and crucified, the Lord has taken and made him both Lord first, that's what comes first, and Christ or Messiah. There is a little bit of a disconnect from what we see. We tend to use the word church more than kingdom, and I understand that that's a little bit confusing to some people, and it's been kind of co-opted by some, and it's one thing that I just have a little bit of a pet peeve. We should not turn over biblical terminology just because someone misuses terms. And we do that sometimes. So we will allow people to kind of co-opt words and we'll stay away from them because someone else misdefined them. No, we need to make sure they're defined well, but we need to use what God says. But anyway, this idea of his kingship, this idea of his lordship is so important. It's foundational. And I would turn us back to our Genesis study. When we started in that Genesis study, in the very book of chapter 1, when God created mankind, he created mankind and gave them what? Dominion. Right? And what is dominion? Rule. And what did they have rule over? Everything. Everything that what? Yeah. Everything specific, right? Everything that creeps on the earth, everything that moves on the earth, and so forth. And the birds of the air, the fish of the sea, and everything that creeps on the earth. In the garden, how did Satan come to Adam and Eve? Serpent. You know what a serpent does? It creeps on the earth. You know what he did not have? Dominion over them. What happened when they sinned, when we sinned? Yep. He rules through sin and death. So these things are so fundamental and they're easy to pass by, and I don't want to make it always something difficult and deep, but it is something to remember that Jesus is fulfilling God's plan from the very beginning. Why did he need to be man? See, when you ask that question, why is he deity? Well, he's deity, he's God. Why did he come and put on flesh? He's restoring, if you would, what?
Faith.
Okay, he's restoring their faith. He's restoring their dominion. He's restoring mankind's dominion. In him, not in us, and we share in it. But the reality is that he is the perfect fulfillment of that. He brings the earthly throne of David and the heavenly throne and brings them together in what? One. Ephesians chapter 1, 9 through 11. They summed up all things in heaven and earth in Christ. All right, so it's not just terminology that we can attribute to him. There's a lot being said when we call him Son of David, and we're just going to kind of go with that theme for a minute. We're going to jump now a couple chapters. Matthew chapter 15. And I want you to kind of pay attention. The first group of people that we just pointed at were two blind men who recognized him as Son of David. And as Vicky said, they were blind. How they know it was him, I don't know all that happened, but they recognized either the stories that were being told or the things that they had heard that maybe other people didn't, but they recognized enough to be able to know who he was. In Matthew 15, let's drop it down to verse 21. Then Jesus went out from there and departed to the region of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a woman of Canaan came from that region and cried out to him, saying, all right, stop for a second. A woman of Canaan would be what?
Canaan.
Okay, then she is not most likely what?
Jews.
A Jew. Okay, yes. You're very good. You're very correct, Alan. Very correct. She was a Canaanite, which would be also a Gentile, not a Jew. Behold, a woman of Canaan came from that region and cried out to him, saying, have mercy on me, O Lord, Son of David. My daughter is severely demon-possessed. And then she's going to follow him around. He doesn't answer her right off the bat, and she begs and begs until he hears her, right? And then you have some powerful words there as he gives recognition to her faith. So let's read that. So if she recognizes him as the Son of David, this is a Canaanite woman. Now the people around him are struggling to understand that he is even a prophet of God, and they are definitely not wanting to attribute the Son of David to him. I'm talking about the leadership of the Jews and so forth. And yet this Canaanite woman calls him Son of David. Verse 23. But he answered her not a word, and his disciples came and urged him, saying, send her away, for she cries out after us. And he answered and said, I was not sent except to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So we know she is not just a Jew who lived in Canaan. She is a Canaanite. Then she came and worshipped him, saying, Lord, look at the word again, help me. But he answered and said, it is not good to take the children's bread and throw it to the little dogs. And she said, yes, Lord, yet even the little dogs eat the crumbles which fall from the master's table. And then Jesus said to her, O woman, great is your faith. Let it be to you as you desire. And her daughter was healed from that very hour. What was it about her faith that he commended? That she was persistent. Okay. What did she say when he responded that he was only sent to the Israelites? She was persistent. That definitely is to her favor.
She said, Lord, help me.
She called him Lord. There's that pickup on that Adonai, right? Look at the spelling again. How did he respond to her besides, saying, hey, I just came to the lost sheep of Israel, and she says, Lord, even what?
The little dogs get the crumbs.
How did she see herself?
The little dog. Not a Jew.
Okay. Very humble. Look at the picture. This is, and I'm not trying to belittle her. She saw herself as basically a peasant begging from what?
The Lord.
Begging from a king. Okay, begging from the Lord. I'm not saying that's the image he wants. But she recognized all the people around them, they think they're higher and bigger and better than him. All the Pharisees, I'm talking about the religious leaders. And so he commends her faith. She is, one, first, persistent. Two, even recognizing what they couldn't recognize. She's a Canaanite. Two blind men, and now a Canaanite. and they recognize that he is the son of David. Where did she get that from? It doesn't say she's a proselyte. Where'd she get the understanding of David and the prophecy of David and fulfillment of that prophecy?
She was from Canaan
Mm-hmm.
and had faith enough to recognize him
Yeah.
as the Lord.
She had obviously learned somewhere, heard somewhere, and was able to put the pieces together. It is something that judges find interesting, but again, the least likely people to recognize him as the son of David are the ones who recognize him as the son of David. And they are the ones he commends for their faith. So if we go back to the previous one, he talks about their faith, and because of their faith, they grant them whatever. And here he commends her for her faith. Great is your faith, he tells her. All right? Let's do one more. We're actually going to go a little bit more forward, chapter 21.
Do you think that was the first non-Jew he granted a miracle to?
That's recorded.
That's recorded, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there could have been someone in one of the towns when he healed the whole town. But as far as I know, recorded anyway. And since he made such a powerful proclamation, I'd say that would probably be true, because they would, someone would say, well, you healed so-and-so down here. And I'm trying to remember, the only exception that could be is a centurion's servant. And I think that's after this event that we just read. So that's in Matthew 19, and we were in 15. I think that's a little bit further down. So we'll simply hear at 21. Matthew chapter 21. We're down in verse 9 is our key verse here. We want to set up the context just a little bit, though. So look at verse 8. A very great multitude spread their clothes on the road. Others cut down branches from the trees and spread them on the road. This is the first day of the week as he's going into Jerusalem, of the week leading up to his trial and his crucifixion. Okay? So as he goes in, they're going to sing Hosanna. That's what we're going to read in just a second. And they are commending him as a king. So all that they're doing, all this hoopla, is because that's what they're recognizing. Verse 9, though, then the multitudes who went before and those who followed cried out, saying, Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, Hosanna in the highest. And then it tells us, and when he had come into Jerusalem, all the city was moved, saying, Who is this? So the multitude said, This is Jesus the prophet from Nazareth of Galilee. Kind of an interesting parallel. You have the ones who are leading into the city, recognizing the Son of David. They get inside, the people are confused. For those people, are we talking about religious kind of higher ups? I don't know. It doesn't really label them here. But they're like, well, he's a prophet from Galilee. A bit of a different take on who he is, right? The whole point of what I'm trying to get at here is the emphasis on recognizing him as Son of David, but it's the common people who do it. Now, Peter will confess it. He says, You are the Christ, the Son of David. Right? When he asks, who do men say that I am? Who do you say I am? It's that recognition that he's the Son of David that he constantly gives praise to. Not just that he's Lord, or that he is deity, or that he is sent from God. What's so significant about this title, Son of David? Who is David? Let's go back a minute. The children of Israel leave, or go back a good minute. They leave Egypt. They finally go into the land that God had promised them after they murmured and complained and had to march around for 40 years. Right? When they get into the land, they're divided into tribes. They go through the period we call the Judges. And And what's their life like in that period, that couple hundred years? Just a few hundred years. Cycle of judges. They're faithful, and then they start worshiping Baals and become unfaithful, and then they become enslaved to someone, to something. The Midianites, the Ammonites, the Amorites, the Philistines later, and then God raises up a judge, and then he beats them back, and he frees his people, and then we start the cycle all over again, right? Until we have Samuel, and Samuel is the prophet, but he is kind of the de facto leader of God's people. And he has gotten old. He has 2 wicked sons. The people come to him and say, hey, you're old. You're going to die soon, which I find interesting. He lives another 30-some years before he's off the picture. But they're saying, oh, we need your sons. They're wicked. They weren't wrong. They were wicked. Give for us what? Or give to us what? A king. But they don't just say give to us a king. They say give to us a king like other nations.
We want to be like the Joneses.
Yeah. We want to be styling like everybody else around us because they got it so good. Right? So Samuel gets upset. He goes to God. God says, they didn't reject you, Samuel. They rejected me. And he sets up this process where he's going to run into Saul. And Saul is the king that they wanted. David is not just a king who is good. After they experienced Saul, which is the king they wanted, a king like the other people had. He looked the part. He was a head and shoulder over everybody. He was taller. It said he was handsome looking. He was all these things, just like they wanted. And even when Samuel warned them that he's going to enslave your children, he's going to take and put them in armies, he's going to take your lands for himself, which is exactly what he does, they're like, no, we want it. David becomes then what? He's anointed, but what kind of king does he become?
Pretty successful, isn't
Okay, yeah, he does become successful after after Saul's off the map. I won't put it this way. Saul was the king they wanted. David was the king they needed. And here's the thing. Sometimes you don't quite understand what you need until you realize what you want, isn't it? And that just plays out so many times. In so many of our lives, that it's probably true. We can look back at careers, relationships, all kinds of things that teach us that kind of lesson. But David is the king they needed. David is called the man after what? God's own heart. So I know he sins, and I know that he has the issues with Bathsheba and all that comes out of that. I'm not trying to make light of that, but he is the king that they needed. Now, fast forward through all those centuries, all the kings and the Babylonian captivity, and through the Persians and the Greeks and the Romans, to Jesus' day. Who is Jesus? The son of David. He's the king that they need. He's the king we all need. So there's a lot being carried with this idea. It's not just one of many names. And that's true. There are a lot of names associated with Jesus, but each one is kind of significant into the role or aspect that he plays. Right? So what are some of the terms that are, besides Son of David, that are used to describe or to title Jesus? Counselor. Okay. So we're going to go to the Isaiah passage. It's read a lot of times around Christmas. Wonderful. Counselor. Someone said Prince of Peace. Comforter. Okay. It's also used with Spirit.
Great physician.
Great physician. Okay. Used in a negative way too. Physician, heal yourself, right? The crowd tells him. What else is he called?
You said earlier, King of Kings, bright morning star.
Yeah. King of Kings, Lord of Lords, bright morning star. He's called the Seed. in Galatians 3.
A shepherd.
He's called the shepherd, right? Or the great shepherd. All these titles, they describe him, don't they? They're not just titles. They describe some aspect of who he is, and he is all those things at the same time, which is awesome.
The Word. The Word.
The Word. The Word became flesh and dwelt among men, and we beheld his glory as the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and full of truth. When we talk about Jesus, we're talking about someone that is unique. We said this a few weeks ago. There is no one more authentic than Jesus, because he is all these things. But inside of that, the one that maybe he ascribed to him the most during his ministry, that he carries the most, is this idea of Son of David. And I think it carries that victory. It carries that idea of all of God's enemies being brought to an end. You remember in David's day, he defeated all the enemies around him. That's why he was at the palace when the sin happened instead of being out with the army, because there wasn't really a war. But anyway, let's go one last time. This is Matthew chapter 22. Matthew chapter 22. We have some parables inside of this. We have some arguments between the Pharisees and then the Sadducees. And at the end of the one with the Sadducees, that's where we're going to kind of pick up. We're back with actually the Pharisees, sorry. In verse 41, Matthew chapter 22, while the Pharisees were gathering together, Jesus asked them, saying, "What do you think about the Christ? Whose son is he?" And they said to him, "The son of David." And he said to them, "How then does David in the Spirit call him Lord?" And then we're going to have the same quote as what we read in Acts chapter 2. The Lord said to my Lord, "Sit at my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool." If David then calls him Lord, how is he his son? And no one was able to answer him a word, nor from that day on did anyone dare question him anymore. Why was this the question that ended the constant trial of Jesus? Talking about the public, trying to catch him, trying to argue with him, trying to debate him. Let's go back to the question. He asked them, "What do you think about the Christ? Whose son is he?" And they said to him, "The son of David." And then he asked the question, verse 43, "How then does David in the Spirit call him Lord?" What was the stumble for them?
Him being a king, him being a steward, that even David called him Lord.
Okay. This is a little bit deeper. I'm not going to say that I understand every piece of this, okay? This is just one of those things. But I do want to see, here's the point I want you to walk away with. The deepness, the gravity of this term is bigger than just a title. It's the whole plan kind of summarized. It is the idea that the son of David would also be deity. And they would not accept that. That's the hang-up. If they say that he is the son of David, and David calls him Lord, that means he can't David acknowledges that he pre-exists what? David. Which means he's deity. And they must have had this idea, which I believe we can establish through their writings, that the son of David would be just that, a son of David. Not necessarily deity in the flesh. So when we're looking at this and you're thinking about what were some of the hang-ups they had with him, this constant idea that he was deity was what they couldn't handle. When they called him the Son of God, when they called him, and when he says in John chapter 8 that before Abraham was, I was, they really can't handle that. You're not even 50 years old. That's the hang-up. And Jesus spells it out perfectly right here. It's also what then Peter takes and convicts them on that day. They're one and the same. This Lord, this Adonai, and the Son of David are one and the same. that changes the whole thing. If it's an earthly man, what has been mankind's issue the whole time? Mankind doesn't want God to rule. Have you noticed that? We go all the way back to the garden, and they had one rule. One rule, that's it. And we're blessed with everything. But it's like, no, I want to be like God. That was a temptation, wasn't it? In the day that you eat it, God knows that you will be like him. And she saw that it was sweet to the eye, and that it would taste good, and that she desired to be wise, and she partook of it and gave it to Adam, who was with her, and he partook of it. We talked about judges. We could do this in several places. They wanted a king. Like what? Like everybody else. God told Samuel, they didn't reject you. They rejected who? They did not want God to rule. If it's a king, then what can I do? If it's an earthly king, say, you could overthrow him. Yeah, but you could manipulate him. You could convince him. You could bribe him. You could whatever. You can't do that with God, can you? This has been the heart and soul problem of mankind from the very beginning. It's an issue with dominion. It comes from the very beginning. We want it. We were given it, but we want to exceed what we were given. We want to be God. And that comes all the way down to this theology. They could not handle the idea of the son of David being Adonai. Not just king, but king of kings. Deity. All right. Little side note, I guess. Little side that's tonight. But we're going to talk a little bit about joy on Sunday nights in the month of December. And I'm going to bring up David, Jesus being the son of David, because, it's talked about a lot this time of year. And so I thought this would be a nice little prelude to what that terminology actually means. But appreciate you all, Lisa, humoring me tonight. We want to go ahead and extend an invitation. Do we have a song picked out? 5:39. 5:39. In the pictures, I've had a line up there. Do y'all know why I have a line up there? David was the Lion of Judah, okay? And so that lion is often lamb. It's kind of interesting. A lamb is associated with Jesus, and a lion is associated with Jesus. When we think about Jesus, he is both of those things. He is a lion in that idea of ruler, king, right? King of the jungle, that idea. And he's also a lamb at the same time. And those things are hard to kind of reconcile sometimes for people. Well, if we're outside of Christ, we need to know him, and we'll know him as the lion. The book of Revelation tells us that he rules the nations with an iron rod. But if we're inside of Christ, we know him as the lamb who was given for our salvation, for our hope, for our place. And that's a duality that's very powerful, but it should be comforting. If we want that hope of heaven, if we want a hope of being free from our own sins, David, or the son of David, Jesus, is the answer to that. And as you already know, he is the one who died on the cross and gave us the gospel to set us on that course. If there's someone here tonight that's not yet obeyed the gospel, we want to extend to you an opportunity, or if you need the prayers of the church, as we stand and sing a song of the day.